anyway, Ryan was always good at networking. You know, no matter who met somebody 5 years ago, 6 years ago, he'd always ties, you know, and keep in touch with them, and he was just amazing in that way. And after he graduated, he, one of his old professors at Long Island University was now the director of theater at Lehman College in the Bronx. And he said, hey, what have you been doing? I came up with this class at CMU, and he goes, oh, really? Well, why don't you send me the syllabus? I'd like to see it. About 2 weeks later, he comes back and says, you know, this is really good. You know, we'd like to actually offer this to our students at Lehman. Would you be interested in being an adjunct professor? And Ryan's like, absolutely. Not thinking about what that was going to mean, because at the time he was working in Brooklyn. And so after work, 1 day a week, and for people who don't know New York, you have Brooklyn here, you have Manhattan here, and you have the Bronx up here. And so he'd have to get on the lovely New York subways, go into Manhattan, and go all the way up to the Bronx, which is a lovely 2-hour trip, and then teach a 3-hour class to about 30 plus students, many of them who were adult students. And once again, end of the semester, he tells me, man, these people come up to me and they said they really enjoyed the class, learned a lot. I said, I think you found your calling. So he would still have taught that class going forward, but unfortunately, you know, the way things are in colleges today, budgets were cut and no more adjunct professors were allowed at Lehman College. But that wasn't the end of Ryan's teaching story. Again, networking, he connected with people at Long Island University, and he was scheduled to teach that class in the next calendar year if his illness had not taken him. So it's, again, but here's a funny one. Here's a funny side story. Ryan, and the thing you enjoyed about being a professor, was he had access to the Lincoln Center archives in New York City. And a lot of people don't know this, but they filmed every production on Broadway, and I think it goes back into the 60s. And but not the general public can't see these. You have to, the only way you can get access to those archives is being somebody like a professor under educational research. Can you go see these? And so on rainy days, snowy days, just days he was in the city looking for something to do, he'd go to the Lincoln Center archives and they'd say, this, I want to see, and they put him in a cubicle with a TV set. It was like a kid in a candy store, you know. And the next day he'd call me, Dad, I saw the original Sweeney Todd with Angela Lansbury, and I saw, you know, the original Company with Elaine Stritch and Dean Jones, and you know, couldn't have been happier. But that was Ryan. Like, Ryan was an only child, and he always made his own, you know, good time. And if you wanted to come along, great. But he did everything, as they say in that scene in Titanic with they're all eating together, and Jack Dawson says, make it count, and Ryan always made it count. That, like I said, that was just a little sidebar, funny thing that he loves so much about that particular benefit of being a professor. The thesis play that Ryan did, Robbie Alex Cooper. After he graduated, Ryan had submitted it to the very prestigious Eugene O'Neill playwriting competition. And he was a finalist in that competition. And they sent, you know, they get like 1,000 plays to consider in that competition. So he was very proud that he at least made it to the finals. He didn't win it, but you know, that's still pretty impressive. And he's always been, you know, very proud of that. After graduation, things are happening on the home front where Pat and I happened to discover this wonderful city you're in right now, and we say, hey, you know, it's got beautiful beaches, it's got theater, art, music, you know, maybe we should take a shot and move down to North Carolina, which we did. And so we bought a house here, and just when we were coming down to finalize things on the house, Ryan tells us that I got an interview with the New York Foundation for the Arts. And Pat and I looking at each other, could there be a more perfect organization for Ryan to join? An organization that helps artists see their vision and help them out, whether support or financially. So again, a match made in heaven. But the first couple interviews went pretty well. And then it was a job, he was the administrative assistant for the president of the foundation. That was the job. And so we had to have the interview with the president. And Michael Royce is here tonight, joining us graciously. And Michael, after he came out of that interview, he said, "That was the toughest interview I ever had." he said, I don't think I got the job. And so I said, Ryan, just keep letting them know you're interested. You never know, And so it was actually Pat's birthday. We closed on the house, and we were in the plane getting ready to come back to New York, and Ryan calls and goes, I got the job, I start in 2 weeks, So he's so happy. And so he was Michael's administrative assistant for 2 years. And then he got to move up and become grant writer in the organization, and which he relished. And that's kind of bringing us full circle on Ryan's story until we get to the part we don't want to talk about tonight. Now I get to say the part that is kind of bittersweet, is that there's so many things we were going to miss about Ryan. His humor, his big hugs, his that goofy faces he would make sometimes, his laugh. He was an old soul. We always say. He said, whatever age he was like much older than that age. We're gonna miss talking to him about every artistic event or TV show or play or movie. But I was hoping to have this stand up, but it wasn't helping me out. But as this picture shows right here, he will always be with us, walking right beside us. And our good friend Melody had made me aware of a quote that seemed appropriate for that thought. And the quote goes like this: "Those we love don't go away. They are always beside us, every day, unseen, unheard, but always near. Always loved and always missed." But a couple other comments were made about this picture, which are perfect. Several people said, "You know what?" I'll hold it up a little further for you. It almost looks like you guys are like the Wizard of Oz, walking down the yellow brick road. Which was perfect, because from an early age, Ryan loved the Wizard of Oz. And he loved every version of the Wizard of Oz, from Wizard of Oz on Ice to Wicked, the Broadway show, to the more mature Gregory Maguire books that I think he read about a dozen times. I think he was looking for new concepts. He just kept reading. And I thought about that connection when doing this speech, and I said, you know what? Ryan had all the wonderful traits of those amazing characters. He had an amazing creative brain that saw stories and came up with things that only Ryan could come up with. He had an amazing courage to deal with what he had to do in the last 12 months. And Pat and I would always say, he's the strongest person we'll ever know, because it was a grind, and he was, like I said, so brave and so many times. But he was brave in all the little bumps in the road of his life. He would, something would come up, and he would just dust himself off, pick himself up, and keep going. And that was Ryan. He was gonna not, one day was not gonna count for him. But most important was he had an amazing heart, and which loved unconditionally and touched anyone he came in contact with. And the quote from the movie, a heart is not judged by how much you love, but how much you are loved in return by others. And judging by the amazing outpouring we have seen online, we have seen texting, emails, in person, when someone passes, you usually get, sorry about the passing or that, but these are just sentences on how these people that we didn't even know, and I don't even know if Ryan knew how much he touched them during his time with them, and just this outpouring. It must have been about half a dozen people saying he was my big brother, and he'll help me with this and help me with that, and it's just been amazing and helped us get through this really terrible time. But Ryan was truly, truly loved by many, many others. And that's a legacy he can be proud of, and that's a legacy for his amazing life. Got through that. So now I'd like to invite up Jordan, who is Ryan's cousin and big brother, and he will tell us his remembrance of his crazy cousin.